I want to talk about World of Warcraft Classic. It's a game that's coming out in a few months, and what it is a revisit to essentially the roots of that game. It's been through a number of expansions and it's changed quite a lot over the years. And one of the complaints has always been that when something is changed, people miss the old stuff and find and like and dislike the new stuff. And as things continue, sometimes the original player base who was earned by the original game becomes more and more almost like they're disrespected in preference for a broadening audience. And this is something I've talked on before, where the ability for a large company to take advantage of increasing their market share, it exists when they're large and they're successful. And in doing that, they leave behind a core audience, essentially making a rift between what the game originally was and how it found its original success, the core of the game, and an ever-expanding version of things moving forward that becomes less and less like the original in order to capture a wider series of demographics, or in order to pursue the ever-changing landscape of competition or what have you. So what ended up happening with World of Warcraft is it's for two reasons. Hackers are playful. They explore. They also are taunted by both technical challenges and just being told not to do certain things. And so people data mined and recreated the original servers for various expansions through this game, essentially taking what is supposed to be what is an online experience and copying it and making a private server that they can change the mechanics of. So for example, some servers are based around a particular expansion pack, but they like cut out a bunch of stuff that they think is fluff that they don't want as part of their vision of things. And then they add like double experience points for leveling or double gold, or they tweak a bunch of settings that never existed in the original game. So they're playfully exploring the technical challenges of stuff, and they're recreating a vision that was left behind by the original creators of the game, I can't even say the creators of the game, because the staff who were working on the original version, the so-called vanilla of World of Warcraft, almost none of them are there anymore. From the CEO, the team leader, they're just not there anymore. They've moved on to other things for whatever reason. It happens in life. People don't stay at the same job or even the same career. And so the old servers exist where, but they're illegal. I mean, so what happened is Blizzard, the owner of World of Warcraft, has a legal team who are essentially on retainer, and it's their job to protect the intellectual property, etc., of Blizzard. And they go out and they scour the internet, and one of the things they do is they go and they find these servers, these private servers, and they shut them down because they are literally not legal. And so they deal with all the international concerns. Like Blizzard is a company based in the United States, even though it's got presence elsewhere because it runs servers in all kinds of parts of the world so that they can have an international market. So this company goes and it understands things that can go to like a private server in some other country and deal with the legal problems of going and having them legally shut down, etc. And they did that. And that eventually their eye turned to one extraordinarily wildly popular server that was recapturing the original flavor. It was trying to be authentic to the core thing that the game was before it even had an expansion. Now, this is something I've never experienced. I never went to I explored private servers at one point, but I don't even think I made a character on one or anything like that. I just went and I looked and I saw that there was a really, really good, there was a community. It was active. And so those lawyers took it down. It's their job. Blizzard actually didn't have anything to do with that as such, other than having these lawyers, paying these lawyers. Just, you know, they're on retainer kind of thing. They go off and they do their own thing, and Blizzard gets a bill, and that's what they do. That's the relationship. And so it was essentially something of a PR disaster where people are saying, "Oh, Blizzard, you're so bad. Why?" Like, these people are just trying to recreate the original vision that you don't have anymore. They're trying to create a game that you don't want to make anymore. That, look at all these people. Look at how popular it is. Why don't you work with them? Why don't you like release your own thing? And there were some significant efforts. Like, the old vanilla WoW team lead went to Blizzard himself to make a case for why there is a market for a version of the game. I don't know how to explain that, where something new is released as a second game that Blizzard listened, and it's coming out. It's coming out in a few months, and I don't know that I'm hyped for it. I didn't even know if it was real until the vanilla team lead, the old vanilla team lead, actually like told his little community. I had no idea. And then a couple days later, you know, I'm talking with some other people and they bring it up, and like, okay, well, it's a thing and nobody really knows what to do with it. I don't know what to do with it, because I mean, that's part of why I'm thinking while I'm going through this video is, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what they're doing. I don't think they know what they're doing. I mean, obviously, okay, if you have a game, let's say something, unfortunately it's done from the wrong angle. So what they say is, well, we can make this kind of game and we think that there is a market for it. So we're going to make this game, we're going to release it. Maybe the market will like it. Well, they're kind of not doing that, because they took something away from a bunch of people. I think what in essence they're trying to do is they took the thing away, and they kind of have to protect their intellectual property. And maybe previously there's an argument where they can be like, and just kind of ignore that thing over there and play like they never knew about it in the first place and let it happen. And there are certain circumstances where you want to do that as a business, where you kind of want a certain level of piracy, and you want to just have there to be a mood out there, like okay, I don't know that I can give a relevant current example of something like, imagine Microsoft being okay with a limited number of people pirating Microsoft Office. And they're like, well, we've got no problems with everyday people pirating some copies of this software, because we want the industry to be using this to kind of like force their employees to use this. And that's where our market is. And we want everyday people to know how to use it. So we want kind of the piracy to actually support. We want those people skilled in it so they can enter into a workforce where that skill is used. Well, what Blizzard is doing is they could have ignored that and had that piracy kind of support the game, in that the fallout of all of the players from their core game could have like gone somewhere, but still thought about the game and maybe come back and play both. Or now they have to deal with the PR nightmare, etc. But back to the fact that this game actually exists is, now that it exists, what they probably think they're doing is creating a game where they are recreating something like a new product. They're creating a new product, and maybe they think what they're doing is they're attracting all the previous players from that illegal server and from many others perhaps to that game. They're like, oh, there were X number of people playing that. We're making it a thing. We will get X number of people from there playing our game. Plus, there's an attractant from the old product that will come out, that will get drawn to the new product. And you might think that's a bad thing, but it's not necessarily bad at all, because they're not the same. They're not the same thing. It's just like there are different activities created for different demographics in one huge game in World of Warcraft to attract this kind of player, or this demographic, or this kind of person with this much amount of time. And so you've got that in one package. There's no difference between that, having that all in one mega package, and that having that in multiple packages. So in theory, it's not really a bad thing. So it's not a competitor that they're pulling up, because they win. Wherever a player goes, they win. So that's not really that big of a deal. You might think it's kind of a big of a deal if they need to like assign developers, they need to pull developers from this game over to this other game. And there's kind of an inefficiency there. But essentially what they're doing is they're creating a new project, and they're stealing from some insight from this other project over here. But they can do it. They can do it. It's a new product. They can do it, and they can make it successful. They're making the assumption that people who were paying $0 over at this other free server would pay dollars for their product, which is not true. They're pretending like these people can't go someplace else or go play some other game, like they have money in the first place. And a lot of these people, they don't. That's why they were playing that version of stuff. Because a lot of these private servers, they're not a subscription fee. They're microtransaction based, or they're donations based to just cover bandwidth, and it's kind of a hobby project, etc. Because the heavy lifting was done by Blizzard way back when they were taking the code from them. So technically, just volunteers, etc., could be maintaining and updating that private, almost free product. They have costs, but it's not the same as building and supporting the full official game in the first place. So Blizzard's coming out with this thing. And I've been thinking whether or not I care about that, because I've been burnt out of the actual World of Warcraft game for a long time. I'm trying to think about what I want in a game, and one of the things that I have missed, because I've been there for a long time. I've been there since the first expansion pack, so I'm not one of the old people. And I didn't have a computer that could do that stuff, and I didn't care about games really back then. Like online games was just a weird concept to me. And I would play like StarCraft and stuff like that online. Okay. So I'm thinking about whether or not I play this game, and I remember that they nerfed the game. So they made it soft, they rounded out the edges, so that the original game was of a certain difficulty level, and then as they expanded their demographic, it became less and less difficult. And some of that was like pulling back. They have a huge amount of development effort spent toward Endgame, where Endgame is like raiding and stuff like that, and it was very exclusive. It was so exclusive that everyday players would just never see that stuff, because they need to be organized in a group. They need to have a certain level of skill. They need to have a certain level of actual dedication in terms of time to go and get their prerequisites, do their stuff, to pull their weight ahead of time, and then attend and get and organize, etc. And so that stuff was so difficult that most people couldn't do that. And the landscape of players was different back then. So it was okay. Everybody did that. That's how games worked. And then you had more and more people that would come in who were casual about their play, such that they didn't have hours and hours every day to go and do all that stuff. The game was not their lifestyle. But the thing is, as the game progressed, to take advantage of a changing or a widening player base to get more wallets, as the game changed to do that, there was core players who, like myself, felt like the game was being watered down, wasn't as much fun. I would go and I would do things out in the world, and the world was just this boring thing. It became safe. It became just about the lore and walking around places and how pretty it was, and oh, here's a mini game, and it was just awful. I mean, right now I still have to do this. So now it's just so bad that players just rush through all that stuff to get to the end. So players like me, there is nothing in the rest of the game except for the end game. Everything else has been hollowed out, has been made soft, has been made for other people. I'm not one of their players, which is fine, but I'm left without an actual game suited to me. Maybe what Blizzard wants to do is create this as a game that would be suited to me, where I would go and play that instead. Now, I'm not so sure, because I know about a lot of the mechanics from expansion to expansion that were bad. And I know that every expansion, they come out with some new thing, and it's bad. As far as I can tell, I've thought about every expansion's little quirky new experiment, and as far as I can tell, it was bad. It was made bad on purpose to just be different. But it's stupid. Philosophically, the mechanics that they were quote unquote experimenting with would never have worked. They don't even make sense on paper. And they're abysmal. And there's this impression like, oh, they learned for the next expansion, but they're making this other tweak, but they're just making the game different every time to keep it fresh. And I understand that. I understand that it's done wrong. So this game is pulling away from all of those experiments and mistakes and the need to make everything fresh again. And it itself, not having those things, is fresh. So I've been thinking, well, there were a lot of what players call quality of life changes from various expansions, where there were legitimately failures of philosophy or mechanics that they changed, which were good. I don't know that everybody would be universally agreeing that they were good, but there was a whole lot that was just, there was the right way of doing things. And I found a thread that one guy in the forums was posting about all of the things that he had learned. And I'm going to start with the official stuff that Blizzard has talked about, which is next to nothing, which is bad. I mean, that is an absolutely abysmal thing to do. They should be winding up the hype train. Well, the game, as far as I know, it got announced fairly recently. And there's news here. It's all a few days ago, 17 days ago. Yeah, it's like a generic, there's no news specific to what they're calling WoW Classic. So I've got some, as far as I know, everything's from a few days ago or something like that. Okay, so the official stuff that I know about, aside from its WoW Classic, they're winding back everything. They're winding back all the lore, and there's a series of events that have not occurred. So one of the things is they haven't released all of the content that would have been available, not necessarily back then, but around that period of time. So the end game that will exist is the Molten Core, Onyxia, and Muradin. So that endgame content will exist, and then they have already announced that the additional content will be coming up for Alterac Valley, Anchorage, and Naxxramas. Okay, so and that's still core stuff, and like the original, that stuff will appear. Now, there's been some speculation where maybe they'll, because I have one guy, he said, oh yeah, I'm interested in that, but I'll wait for a couple of years until they release the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, leading me to wonder if, I mean, they have an opportunity to do it all again. I mean, all of it again, from the perspective of lore and expansions, but fixing the mechanics. All of the mechanics up front, not experimenting with things, just doing everything right. And I wonder if they would be willing to do that, because they might actually have the opportunity to take that core group who were interested in that core game that made the game a success. Maybe they'll be attracted to this classic game. Maybe they can be brought forward through the expansions the right way. Maybe. Now, I don't know what their plans are, and I think that's kind of a problem, because when I invest in a game, it is an investment in a game. It's an investment of time, of interest. It takes me away from other things, including other things in life. World of Warcraft, what have I been playing it for certainly the better part of a decade. Was it like 9 years or something? And that's not insignificant. I've made friends. There have been a lot. There's a community. There have been a lot of friendships, actual friendships being made, not like internet friendships as such, although some have gone from online and regularly chatting to real world meetings and stuff like that. And you get stories like people go and get married and things like that. It's online video games aren't nothing. They aren't a hollow experience for personal gratification. They're not just entertainment in the selfish sense. They matter to a person as a person. Okay, so I want to go through this thread that this guy made, and I'll add a link. I don't know how relevant it's going to be, but there's quite a lot of stuff here that is new to me that I want to go through. Oh, man, this is an American because the date format is all weird. So April the 8th, 2019. So it's okay. So the announcement must have been a while ago. I don't know how official it was. Okay, yeah. So this guy wanted to source everything, but kind of forgot. This is one of these people that was like writing stuff down madly, but forgot where the information came from, like what specific forum post or tweet or whatever the heck anything came from. So a lot of these, well, all of these will just be claims. So I'll take them as that. So some from a Reddit link. Oh, great. Okay, so faithful recreation. I seriously doubt that, because before expansions and major quality of life changes began shaping both the look and feel of the game. Okay. Now, without certain quality of life changes, I don't know that I would play it. I certainly wouldn't play it until somebody gave a breakdown of the game, the changes between there and now, because I know that there will be stuff that I wouldn't like, because I know I essentially inherited a lot of the problems from what we call vanilla, what they're calling classic, in the later expansions that I had played. So I don't know that I would like this, because this is a game what I started playing with had problems, had problems already. And if they're going to keep all those problems or the even worse version of certain problems, why would anybody want to play that? Will there be a beta? Yeah, there's a beta. I went out of my way to go and change my beta preferences to sign up for it explicitly. Will I get in? I know they opened things up a couple of days ago. I'll check my email. It's likely that I'll get in, but we'll see. The game's going to be based on a specific late patch of Classic, which is before the release of their expansion, which is 1.12. And that original patch was released on August the 22nd, 2006. So this is a snapshot in time from that long ago. Is there going to be a cost? It will be bundled into the normal subscription for retail. Retail is the name being used as of like a recent major patch. Retail is the flag used for the current live version of the World of Warcraft that people are playing currently. So there's now 4 versions of the game, or going to be 4 versions. There's going to be retail, which is what people are playing and paying money for. It's the thing that has a cost, and every expansion has a cost. It's got a monthly cost. There's beta, which is the version of that with the experimental stuff that they're going to be releasing soon, but they need to do certain, they want to get feedback, or they want to stress test stuff. One of the reasons I care about that is for development access, to take a look at how they break certain things so that add-ons can be fixed. Then they're going to be releasing 2 more things, and it's with the same monthly fee, although I actually don't know that you have to pay any money to get into beta, because you can get a free account. It's just really, really limited, and maybe with that you can get into beta and just have a regular character in beta. So the third one would be this ClassicWoW, that would be bundled into the same thing, and there will be a beta for ClassicWoW. And I know that this stuff exists in a pretty straightforward way, because the file structure of the game was changed fairly recently that just made it really easy to tack on these different games. Like the entirety of the retail game is just one directory structure built on this stuff, and they're all kind of like sharing some resources. So things take a lot less disk space. Okay, so no cost. That's good. That's good. Okay, so that means I can try it. The question becomes, do I have to pay money to get into it in the first place? Like, do I have to pay the AAA game cost just to try it? So this might not be a monthly fee, but do I have a regular upfront fee? Because then I'll definitely wait for a Let's Play. Are they sharding? Sharding is this thing where there's a lot of popularity in specific sub areas in specific zones in the game, and so they end up kind of seamlessly shifting people around to different servers to help with the load. This is a great idea. I liked it. I liked the way it was done. I don't like the way people were phasing in and out and stuff, but it was like, networking code is really hard, and they eventually did it right. It was just great. It was game-changingly great. I approve of it. Apparently there's no guarantee of it, so nobody knows the technology, and Blizzard hasn't talked about this stuff. I don't know why. I don't know why. They should. It has been confirmed by Blizzard that they will be using a new technology like sharding, but instead of being limited to a specific area around you or zones, it will be a server-wide layer. So they're making a new term. They're not necessarily coining a term, but they're using the term layering. This will allow people to continue to see the majority of the same people in their layer as you move from one area to the next. Good. So you won't see people popping in and out. And well, it wasn't really a problem anyway, and nobody really cared too much, but that's good. That's good. helping to control populations. Yeah. And one of the problems is the game, the population of players in specific areas in the game is going to be highly concentrated in those starting zones. Day one, everybody's going to be level 1. So there's going to be a lot of people clumped together in those starting areas. And then there's going to be people spreading out in different areas for their next levels. And there's going to be some people who lose interest. And there's going to be some new people who come in. So you're going to get the population in specific areas are going to be bouncing up and down. And so you don't, as developers, they don't want to spend a whole lot of money up front maintaining servers for that unexpected flow of traffic. Okay, so they're doing the right thing. This is cool. And this is networking stuff. So that's really, really hard stuff. And as I understand, they brought on board the original dev for that illegal server. They actually hired the guy. I might be wrong, but I want to believe that. I don't want to look that up. I want to believe that. Blizzard had stated that at the latest, the layering will be removed by the beginning of content bucket number 2, whatever that means. So presumably they're going to be, so content bucket, that would have been the Anaj Karan, am I pronouncing that correctly? Ankaraj, Alterac Valley, and Naxxramas. Fine. Yes, they've laid out content buckets that will progress naturally. So they're not calling them expansions, but they're expansions. PvP is missing for a while. Good. I hate PvP. Because that was one of the biggest problems. So the classic, so there's a bunch of phases that they're calling them. So classic launch as Molten Core, Nexia, Muradon. You'll notice that they're labeling things based on endgame stuff. Because these players actually cared about that stuff. But next, Dire Mall. Ooh. I love that place. It's kind of annoying. As Uragos. I don't know what that is. Kazakh. Oh, so they're talking about an actual raid bosses. And then PvP related stuff. Then the Phase 3 Black Moon Lair, Dark Moon Fair, Dark Moon deck drops begin, Alterac Valley, and WS Warsong Gulch. Okay, so more PvP. Phase 4, Zolgarub Green Dragons. Ooh, I like those ones. Then Arathi Basin. So for each one, so that's another PvP. And then Phase 5, Anchorage, War Effort, Anchorage Raids, Dungeon Loot Reconfiguration. Tier 0.5, Relics, Drop Rates, and Location Changes. Okay. Then, so there's a lot of exciting stuff in every single one. Phase 6, Nax, Scourge Invasion. Ooh, the Scourge Invasion was the it's pre-Wrath of the Lich King, wasn't it? Which is 2 expansions after. That's interesting. Then World PvP Objectives. And that's interesting. I wonder if they're going to have, because right now they've got a flag to say that I want to do open world PvP, which I approve of because I hate PvP and should just be turned off. But there's a bunch of problems interacting with other players in my guild, for example, who are flagged all the time, and I'm not, and we can have trouble. We can't interact out in the real world, which is the correct thing to do. It is still annoying. It's inconvenient. But sometimes your choices also include things that are not convenient. But you made the choice, so that's how it works. Battlegrounds, that's a PvP thing, will be added. Okay, and they're talking about what version of certain things will be put in. It looks like it's a hard version 1.12 on everything. I should probably say 1.12. What about add-ons? They will be breaking add-ons that automate gameplay, because that was a problem way back in vanilla. They didn't know any better. Things were done wrong, and people were incredibly intelligent and took advantage of a lot of fun stuff. Decursive, easy healing, etc. So normal add-ons will still be allowed, good, although it's obviously going to be, I don't know how unrecognizable the technology will be, but I would definitely have to maintain another set of add-ons just for that version of the game, which is a real pain. I would really not like doing that. While the current races and classes be in the game, I really want to be a goblin or Draenei. No, the game will be exactly as it was in 2006. Okay, I happen to disagree with that. Right? Because they're not taking advantage of any of this stuff, any of the technologies, any of the whatever the heck that in terms of lore or starting areas or anything from after this. So I heard this is going to have loot trading. Okay, so okay, and loot trading, there were these huge problems of people stealing gear from one another, and things would drop, and there would be like, there was drama regarding loot. There's always going to be drama regarding loot because the game is, the reward is loot. That's the thing. And there were circumstances where that undeserving person decided to roll on a thing that they shouldn't have because that person said that they wouldn't. And they're just like, I want it, yoink. And they run away with it. and that it's an absolutely despicable thing to do. And part of the thing about the game was, due to the limitations of the way social interactions could happen because of the way servers worked and the way communication worked. They were essentially small towns, so people had names for themselves, and there were like community blacklists on certain people. So somebody would act in certain ways, and they would be shunned by all of the certain classes of high-end raiding guilds or this kind of stuff. And so there was a community feeling that changed because of certain mechanics. And one of the things that people are saying for Classic WoW is that because it's going back, it's going to be bringing back a lot of that community feeling, which is interesting because I never really experienced. I guess I can say something like I didn't miss it because I wasn't really I guess I was a part of it because, I mean, I wasn't an unknown, but I didn't really leverage the existence of that. So it's this thing that it was there, I guess. I was told it was there and it was important. I didn't really care. I mean, I wanted the convenience of just like clicking a button and randomly grouping with some people and not really knowing who they are. But that was a problem because you want to be paired with people who have a sufficient skill, and that's become an incredible nightmarish problem. And the only way to overcome that nightmarish problem was by being so good that you can drag their weight. That's the way the game is now. But they're going to be going back to this other socialization system, which is going to force/let me find people of the necessary skill level so that we all pull our own weight and we all are social about it and all this kind of stuff. So it's so as they get their core group and they expand their demographics out, you get this problem of there is tribalism, but it is a fact that that the game company is going for other demographics, and the core group is going to have a problem connecting with the various different kinds of demographics because those other people, they're attracted to different parts of the game. So these people are going to have a hard time interacting at all. Not that hard. I mean, we're all humans, so we can, and they're all interested in the game more or less, but there's just certain stuff that they can't really click with. And so it's not tribalism. It's kind of like a xenophobia where those other people want to come and play the thing, but they want to try it, but they're not that kind of player. And so they end up kind of being the dead weight that has to be dragged around. In the current game as it is now, that's been the way for a long time. So they just have to be pulled around. It's like a cat on a leash. It's just like, and they want to go and look at stuff, and they don't understand what's going on, and they just want to be outside. They don't know where they're going or anything like that. And they're certainly not going to be cooperative. That's what the game is now. But back then, because you didn't have all of those foreigners out there from foreign demographics of foreign interests, you just had that core group. They were on the same page. They didn't need leashes. They did all pull their own weight. And there was a culture of homogeneity that made things more comfortable. So you could say that there was a kind of a natural xenophobia that forms when that shell ends up, when the game starts capturing more and more wallets by expanding its boundaries. And that vanilla is an opportunity to thin things down. I think that would be highly interesting for me, is the sameness that would exist in the players all playing that. Certainly it's, and that's the one thing I wanted to talk about, which is how hard I want a game to be. I'm really sick and tired of how easy things are. I really don't want, I mean, that maybe that's part of me. I don't want to have to pull the weight of other people. It's insulting for me to have to go, and I will have the expertise to go and do stuff, but I don't want to anymore. I think it's insulting. I think it's rude for some casual person to come along and for me to drag them around. That was fun for a long time. I was that guy who, I was so good that the challenge of dealing with idiots was hilariously fun for me. And I wonder if I've just been worn down over the years, because that, I don't know. Maybe I had the expectation that even though I didn't know a person, that they would improve over time. And I'm their chance to go and try this stuff for the very first time. And they're going to be making those same stupid, funny mistakes. And I'd be there for them, and I'm going to help them. I might never meet that person again, but I know that coming out of that, they will have had mad fun. They'll have learned a little bit. They'll want to push themselves, do a little bit more. Because I started in BC. We didn't have any of the more comfortable ways of just queuing up for stuff. So I know people were coming out of my dungeons, for example, better than when they went in. Nowadays, I'll never see a person again. I don't know where they're from, where they're going, anything like that. And because I know that community is going to exist, I'm hoping things are really hard. And I'm hoping that all these people, all these Care Bear casuals come in and they're horrified at how hard it is, and they leave. And it's just, the game is not for them. And because it was one monthly fee, they can go back to WoW. And I really hope that core players in WoW either play both games or just leave the regular game. That the core demographic doesn't exist. Blizzard can keep the wallets. They've got the wallets, but they make a core game for that totally different kind of player, for the original kind of player. They don't need to be kind of parasitic to the nostalgia of that core team, that core player base. They can make a game for them and keep the game like that for them. And that's that. And just keep them separate. And stop with a casual version of the game that oppresses the original player base that made the game popular in the first place. I think that's what I want. And I'd be willing to give up quite a lot to have that social and that gameplay experience. I don't know that they can do that right, because I think some of their philosophies are a little bit wrong for this. Okay, so loot, supposedly they listen to player feedback. So loot's going to be a bit of a thing. We're going to find out. I know they're going to make mistakes. What API version? Okay, so as the game progressed, they learned as developers how to do things better, and they needed to make certain changes. They opened up some of the underlying mechanics to developers to let them create add-ons to help modify the interface and stuff like that. People took wild advantage of things and made automation, stuff like that. And so they learned through the years. They're like, oh, well, we really shouldn't have had that feature or that feature or that feature. This needs to be changed. We forgot to add this. This would be cool. and things mutated over the years. So people are asking, are you going to be going back to like the way things like were back then, but with like anti-cheat stuff? And Blizzard's saying, no, they're going to be using current stuff, the current API, the current developer stuff, but with modifications specific for the way things are for that server. So that's a really good thing. That hopefully means that add-on development will be much, much easier, hopefully the same, and that I'll be able to use all of my existing add-ons, maybe with minor modifications in ClassicWoW. So that's I'm happy to learn that. Character limits are going to be the same as in the regular game. So you're not going to be sharing character slots or anything like that. 10 characters per realm, 50 characters across all realms. That's actually a thing that I care about, because I made a set of new characters per expansion, and I left my old characters as they were in all previous expansions. That means that I've got a massive amount of characters that are just like sitting there unused in the snapshots in the state that the game was at. And as it turns out, I've been able to take advantage of a series of mechanics that Blizzard came out with that lets us go and do time walking through earlier versions of stuff, and that lets us, transmogs was the big thing, where you unlock when you get a piece of gear. If you want to walk around town looking a certain way, normally you just put on that gear and walk around. They introduced transmogrification, which is you have that piece of gear, it unlocks the knowledge to change that, like that slot of gear to that appearance. And so I could just log into all my characters and, hey, I've got all the regular, all the heroic, all the rating, heroic, for all these expansions all the way across. For me, I was a clothy, so anyway. So I had all of it, the certain classes stuff, because I worked this way. I'm going to do the same for I'm not going to do the same for WoW Classic, because the game is going to be so hard to level with that will not be a reasonable thing to do, which I like. I hope that it's really hard to level, because the sense of accomplishment in leveling in this game is just bad. It's just, they know it's bad. They know it's so bad that they actually made it easier to level up through stuff. However, I did make the argument that they make it harder, not exactly harder. Things were changed such that I don't have to skip expansions of content in the same way. I can go and so I've got one character I leveled up through the regular game, the so-called vanilla game, and then I went into, in my case, I went into the Burning Crusade, and I can level up through that first expansion, but I had the option to skip an expansion and level up in there instead. So there was some lineages of leveling experiences that are now intact again, more or less, and it's a whole lot of fun to have to like go through leveling that way. But in Classic WoW, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be the same experience as back then, which is going to be bloody hard. So the game engine is going to be there's going to have a slider to make things. The models from 2004. Okay. I don't really care about some of the graphics engine stuff, but of course they're not going to be rolling it back to the old stuff. They're going to be making it the new good stuff. I'm sure there's going to be a switch or something. Spell batching was announced. I can't remember what that is. Yeah, no items are where the games are. The games are separate. Mount system. Okay, so they're going to have cheap training for mounts and incredibly expensive mounts. It's going to be painful. Oh, I have the original collector's edition. I don't remember the original collector's edition. Pets. I don't care about pets, but apparently pets are going to be a thing. but not pet battling, because that's dumb. The client will not run on 32-bit systems, so it's not going to run on Windows XP like it used to. A bunch of stuff like color blindness will be there. Widescreen is going to be there, obviously. Okay, BattleNet chat. Obviously, loot trading is going to exist. Allowing to loot bind on pickup stuff. Yeah, okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, just for raiding. So you can loot trade stuff that might have been locked to you in the original game. You can loot trade it in raids. What will not be in the game? Looking for raid, looking for dungeon. Yeah, so it's going to be the regular social matchmaking stuff. You go find people, you go talk to people, meet people. Crops Realms will not exist, which means that you are on your server, you are on your own small community. So there are going to be these small population communities of people that play in a specific kind of time zone, in a specific region, and they all choose to go to like an RP server, and it's little, and it's got its own community culture, which is good, Races after vanilla. I don't know what that is. There's this guy suggesting that there might be content past vanilla, which is going to be interesting. I would love to play the game fairly authentically, but with a lot of I want the quality of life fixes. So he's saying that maybe there are other expansions that maybe might be added way later. Who knows? Transmogrification won't exist. Achievements won't exist. I hate that anyway. Progressive itemization will not exist. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to mean, other than, yeah, no, I'm not even going to guess. I don't care. Yeah, okay, so what questions do I have? Am I going to be able to deal with the missing? Am I going to be able to easily identify the quality of life stuff that I have now that won't exist back then? I am going to have to find a server and community suited to my playstyle. I am not the same person that I was when I originally played the first expansion. I've never played the original, and so I don't even know if I have what it takes, or have the time, or I'm interested in those mechanics, or all this kind of stuff. I played a lot of stuff when it was hard. It might have been quite a lot harder before then. I'm not sure if this game will be the right game for me. I'm not going to be buying it unless I can see it. If I have to pay extra money for this game for its release, as opposed to just a monthly fee, I won't. I won't pay more money for it unless I see it. And I'd have to see it and get it specifically recommended to me by one of my existing guildmates. And I would like to hope that a lot of people will be like that. I'd like to hope that a lot of the gamers, that game, the more hardcore, the more like gamer, as opposed to the people who happen to play games because they want to unwind. I'm thinking about the kind of people who play games because that's what they do. That's their thing. That's their hobby. Gamers. I would want to see what happens. I would have to be playing with gamers, and I would have to see if I would be like that, and if this game would be for that group. And I'd check to see with my current guild how many of those people are going to be in. Even if it's just those members would in my current guild on the regular game. If they're in some other guild in ClassicWoW, then I might go and visit them there. So I've talked way too much, as usual. I'm interested in WoW Classic. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I don't know what's going on with that. I hope people aren't suckered into something. I hope Blizzard has any idea what they're doing, even though they don't have the original team. I think the quality of life stuff, a lot of it should have stayed in there. I'm glad that they're not being too stupid about having a completely different set of mechanics in the underlying engine, so the API and stuff like that. I'm glad to see a whole lot of stuff just removed from the game. Yeah, so we'll see what happens.